From Neural Newscast, this is Deep Dive, exploring the moments that shape today.
July 13th, 1787. Before the United States even had a ratified constitution, the young nation was already grappling with an existential identity crisis. The question was simple but daunting. How do you grow a republic without turning your new territories into oppressed colonies? Welcome to Deep Dive from Neural Newscast. I am Frederick Moore.
And I am Oliver Grant. Today, we are looking at a piece of legislation that served as the primary blueprint for the American map, and more importantly, the American moral compass. We are talking about the Northwest Ordinance, a document that arguably defined the soul of the Midwest before the states there even existed. It is often overshadowed by the Constitutional Convention happening simultaneously in Philadelphia. But Oliver, this act was just as critical for the survival of the Union. It organized the Northwest Territory, the area we now recognize as the Great Lakes region, including Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois. It did something truly radical for the late 18th century. You are referring to the line in the sand regarding slavery. Article 6 of the Ordinance explicitly stated that there shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the said territory. It was a monumental structural choice. By banning slavery in the cradle of the territory, Congress created a free soil precedent decades before the abolitionist movement took center stage in the national consciousness. That is a huge point. And the ordinance went beyond what was prohibited. It defined the path to belonging. It promised that once these territories reached a certain population threshold, they could join the Union on an equal footing with the original 13 states. There would be no permanent colonial status and no second-class citizens. It was a massive experiment in how a republican government expands without becoming an empire. It really is a masterclass in operational design. By setting the rules of the game early, Congress influenced the entire cultural and political trajectory of the Midwest. It is the reason the political culture of those states evolved so differently from the plantation economies of the South. However, we have to acknowledge that while it was visionary for settlers, the execution regarding indigenous relations remained deeply flawed and often violent as expansion pushed westward.
As we consider the foundations of the nation, let's shift our focus to some individuals who have built massive cultural legacies of their own. Today is a serious heavyweight day for birthdays, Oliver. We have icons who have defined entire genres of storytelling.
We absolutely have to start with Harrison Ford, born in 1942. It is difficult to overstate his impact on the cinematic landscape. He did more than just play characters. He defined the modern archetype of the reluctant, grumbling hero. Between Han Solo and Indiana Jones, he became the face of adventure for multiple generations. He has that incredibly specific, laconic charisma that feels completely timeless. But then you have Patrick Stewart, born in 1940. He brought a totally different energy to the screen, a Shakespearean weight and gravitas. Whether he's leading the Enterprise as Captain Jean-Luc Picard or guiding the X-Men as Professor X, he embodies a quiet, intellectual authority that commands the room. Stewart's Picard is actually a great study in leadership systems, much like the topics we usually cover. He wasn't the swashbuckling cowboy that Kirk was. He was a diplomat, a scholar, and a strategist. It is fascinating to see how both Ford and Stewart have sustained these massive franchises for over 40 years through the sheer force of their personas.
And we certainly cannot forget Cheech Marin, born in 1946.
He broke barriers in a completely different arena. From the counterculture comedy of Cheech and Chong to his later work in mainstream film and his role as a premier collector of Chicano art, he has been a vital, enduring voice for the Latino community. Cheech is the perfect example of how comedy functions as a bridge. He moved from the fringes of the 1970s drug culture to becoming a household name, always keeping that sharp, observational wit about the Latino experience in America. He proved that storytelling from the margins could eventually move the center, from legends of the silver screen to a technology that is currently reshaping our entire reality. Let's talk about our fact of the day. This takes us back to the summer of 1956, and it represents a massive pivot point for humanity. This is a big one, Frederick. July 13th marks the anniversary of the Dartmouth Workshop. This was a summer-long brainstorming session at Dartmouth College, where the term artificial intelligence was officially coined. It was the moment the field was given a name and a formal academic foundation.
It was a relatively small group of visionary scientists, including John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky. They were incredibly bold. They believed that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence could, in principle, be described so precisely that a machine could be built to simulate it. What is most striking is the sheer optimism of that era. They actually thought they could solve the core problems of artificial intelligence in a single summer. We are now 70 years later, and we are finally seeing the massive scaling of that original vision. It has brought incredible utility to our lives, but it also brings the deep accountability questions that those researchers were only just beginning to imagine. Whether it is the blueprint for a new state or the blueprint for a digital mind, July 13th seems to be a day for setting historical gears in motion. Thank you for joining us for this look at the stories that shaped our world. I am Frederick Moore.
And I am Oliver Grant. Deep Dive is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. Explore history every day on Neural Newscast at deepdive.neuralnewscast.com.
This has been Deep Dive on Neural Newscast, exploring the moments that shape today.